Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving right into this incredible, totally unsung biological marvel sitting right there in the middle of your face. We mostly just take it for granted, right? We literally only notice it when we get a cold or allergies hit us. But looking at our source material today, we're going to flip the script. We're looking at the human nose from a completely new perspective, as this high-tech air purifier, a built-in biological radiator, and a crazy complex chemical decoder. So get ready to rethink what's happening right under your eyes. Just think about the immense volume of work going on behind the scenes to keep your lungs perfectly humidified. Get this, your nose actually produces about a quarter gallon of moisture every single day. Just picture a quarter-gallon jug of water. Yeah, that's exactly how much sticky, viscous fluid, which we lovingly call mucus, your nose manufactures just to condition the air you breathe. It's this massive, daily biological chore, and you probably don't even realize it's happening. Section 1. The Ultimate Air Purifier. How the nose cleans our air. So the air all around us is just absolutely packed with bacteria, dirt, and smoke. And while the hairs in your nostrils act kind of like a dense forest to trap the bigger particles, tiny microscopic invaders often slip right past. Now, when dangerous dust or germs finally hit that sticky mucus, bam, it sends an instant distress signal straight to your brain. The response? A sneeze. Your body forcibly expels air through those sensitive nasal passages at literally hundreds of miles per hour. It is basically a high-speed hurricane specifically designed to blast dangerous germs far, far away. And hey, this is exactly why it's absolutely crucial to sneeze into a handkerchief or down toward the ground. You definitely don't want to launch those invaders into someone else's airspace, right? But what about everyday cleaning? Well, inside your nose, you've got millions of microscopic structures called cilia. Think of them as these tireless little biological brooms. These tiny workers are in there sweeping 10 times a second. 10 times! They're constantly moving that mucus layer along, just pushing trapped dirt and germs out of the way. And since that mucus gets dirty really quickly, your body actually completely replaces the entire fluid layer every 20 minutes to stave off contamination. Talk about a highly efficient system. It's basically this incredibly elegant four-step factory process for safely throwing out all that trapped dirt. First step, the mucus traps the invaders. Second, those cilia rapidly sweep the dirty fluid toward the back of your nose. Third, it drops down into your throat to be swallowed. And finally, step 4, it lands right in the stomach, where highly potent stomach acids just destroy the germs in a matter of minutes. Flawless disposal system, right? Well, there is one small catch. When you're out in freezing cold temperatures, this whole sweeping mechanism just stalls out. It stops working properly. And that is exactly why, on a really cold winter day, all that fluid just flows right out the front instead. Yep, that's where your runny nose comes from. Section 2. The built-in biological radiator, warming and protecting the airways. Okay, so cleaning the air is really only half the battle. It's got to be safe, too. To add an extra layer of protection against germ attacks, the nose uses this absolutely fascinating chemical shield. It pumps out a specialized fluid called lysozyme. This stuff is a transparent, super effective antibacterial substance. And the coolest part? This is the exact same powerful germ-killing fluid that protects your eyes in the form of tears. It's just a beautifully shared defense system, a real gift of nature, making absolutely sure that the air you take in is chemically sanitized. But wait, what about the temperature? Well, to pull off the incredibly complicated task of heating outside air up to perfect body temperature, the nose relies on 3 tiny little bones attached to the nasal walls. Now get this, the largest of these bones is a mere 1 inch long. Just an inch. But despite being so small, these bones receive a massive, concentrated blood supply. This rich flow of warm blood basically turns these tiny bones into a literal biological radiator. It instantly warms up the freezing outside air the second it rushes past them and down toward your lungs. Section 3. Decoding the sense of smell. The mysterious system of scents. Beyond just filtering and heating, the nose is an absolute sensory marvel. Your average person can distinguish somewhere around 4,000 distinct odors. But for highly sensitive individuals, that number jumps to an astounding 10,000 unique scents. It's wild. In fact, our source material points out that we honestly don't even realize the full potential of this ability most of the time. Visually impaired individuals, for example, heavily rely on this super refined sense to identify objects and navigate their whole surroundings using nothing but scent. You know what's really staggering about this, though? The actual size of the hardware doing all this heavy lifting. The biological antennas decoding these smells, these yellowish-brown sensory cells, are incredibly tiny. They sit all the way up at the very roof of your nostrils, and the entire area doing this job is exactly the size of a small postage stamp. That's it. And these microscopic antennas are positioned just 1 single inch away from your brain, which gives them a super high-speed, direct connection to process whatever you're smelling. Crazy enough, science is kind of still guessing exactly how this whole thing works. There are basically two main theories floating around. Theory 1 says that we smell because objects physically emit molecules into the air and those drift into our nose, kind of like when you're cooking dinner and the food particles travel across the room. Makes sense, right? But scientists are like, wait a minute, how do we smell a cold, rusty iron bar that definitely isn't emitting loose particles? So that brings us to theory 2. This one argues that our sensory cells actually physically recognize the exact size and shape of molecules in the air. Whichever one is true, these tiny little antennas generate a slight electrical current that shoots straight to the brain, instantly decoding whether you're smelling a fresh rose or, say, jasmine. Section 4. Hidden dangers and rebound effects. Threats to the nasal lining. Because your nose is the absolute front-line border crossing for your entire respiratory system, it's dealing with some severe hidden vulnerabilities every single day. The nasal lining is pretty much constantly under siege. Since dangerous invaders are just floating around in the air, they easily slip in with every breath. The source explicitly calls out some really severe threats here, like the germs that cause tuberculosis or TB and syphilis. If those guys gain a foothold, they can cause some seriously painful sores, literally alter the shape of your nasal lining, and create massive blockages. On top of that, everyday environmental dust and tobacco smoke heavily irritate that inner lining. That leads to painful swelling, way too much mucus, and blocked airways that can even mess with your sinuses and your inner ear. Not fun. Now, when we get completely stuffed up from all these irritants, it's super frustrating. But the source throws up a major warning sign against just grabbing over-the-counter nasal drops. Why? Well, it all comes down to the rebound effect. See, while those drops might offer you some really quick, temporary relief by artificially shrinking the swollen tissues to open things up, they are highly damaging in the long run. Your tissues end up suffering this terrible rebound reaction, where they eventually swell up even larger than before. The experts in the material really stress this, that short-term fix is vastly outweighed by long-term, and sometimes even permanent tissue damage. Section 5. Natural Care and Gratitude. Helping our unsung hero. So how should we actually care for it naturally? Interestingly, the source highlights the Islamic hygiene practice of wudu, which involves washing out the nasal passages with clean water 5 times a day. It presents this as a highly effective, completely natural method to give your nose a hand. By manually cleaning out that trapped dirt and adding a bit of moisture, you're actually giving those tirelessly sweeping cilia a much-needed break. It gives them a period of rest, ensuring they can function way better and last longer throughout your entire life. From there, the material pivots to this deeply philosophical perspective, really framing the nose as a priceless, completely unrequested, lifelong gift from a higher power. It poses this really striking analogy. Imagine you gave a friend a rare, super expensive gift. Now imagine they never ever thanked you for it, and worse, they actively used it to help your enemy. Pretty messed up, right? The source points out the tragedy here, that we almost never express gratitude for this perfect, built-in biological machine. And sometimes we even actively harm it by choosing to inhale damaging stuff like tobacco smoke. Honestly, after learning about all this incredible engineering, the tireless sweeping of those cilia, the massive daily moisture production, and those mysterious postage stamp-sized scent decoders, we really have to look at our noses differently. This built-in air purifier is working for you, non-stop, until your very last breath. So, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder today. Knowing all of this, how are you going to protect, care for, and appreciate your unsung hero moving forward? Just think about that the next time you take a deep, clear breath. Thanks for hanging out with us on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.